Hello and welcome to this Mobalytics video presenting you with the best champions that you can use with the new Conqueror rune in Season 10. I am Virakayu, a jungle main YouTuber, and I'm here to tell you that Riot has since nerfed the rune to more earthly levels, and as such we have a great idea of what champions can abuse this keystone the best, and with which it has the best synergy. So please let us know in the comments which champion you plan on using Conqueror with as the season begins. Let's start things off with S tier champions, those who use Conqueror as their main rune, and therefore who can best use its attributes. And beginning with the mid lane, the reworked Diana has been dominating with her updated E and R, having less of that insane burst damage and more of a sustained, unrelenting, there is no safe word to stop it damage. The thing is, it's just easy to stack Conqueror almost instantly for the bonus AP and healing, and with her passive even giving her 4 stacks by itself, this free stacking plus sustain is why Nash's Tooth and Ardent Censer have the best win rate items at the moment. Along with obscene healing when coupled with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter, you can go live forever by the power of the moon. Now, if there was one champion that didn't need Conqueror to show us the power of healing at Spellvamp, it's Cassiopeia. Not only does she get the venomous sustain from her Twin Fang E ability, now she has even more from this rune. However, this isn't actually the reason she takes it, which is good considering the ranged healing nerf is down to 8%. It's more for the huge AP stacking it provides from reaching a full 10 stack Conqueror, and that allows her to also take Presence of Mind for mana sustain, given she has a preference for Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter as secondary runes. That full kit, the free AP from Conqueror, makes it very difficult to face once you're caught in a chase down, and if she uses her ultimate alongside that, Cass can keep it fully stacked and make it so a prisoner will never escape. You know, unless you consider death an escape, in which case, yeah. And now, maybe a surprise for some, but Aurelion Sol has a commanding win rate with this rune. It's much easier to stack than you think with a Q, a few hits of W, and maybe an auto attack. It should be primed so that when you activate your W again, it's still at full stacks. And this makes it really useful for long trades versus less mobile targets over the more commonly taken Electrocute. Not to mention this enables the Space Dragon to take Presence of Mind, which he would probably say, in his words, is a huge boon to his glorious existence. But let's shift to top lane, and even though many top and mid champions are interchangeable based on matchup, the best Conqueror users really are from this lane, but man is Mordekaiser strong. The hulking AP bruiser with this keystone is quite difficult to deal with. His passive gives his basic attacks a 40% AP bonus magic damage boost, and along with his Darkness Rise passive, the adaptive stats provided by Conqueror means it really does give him an insanely strong lane power on his abilities and his autos. Oh, and by the way, the 15% rune healing plus the healing on his W shield also goes well with this obscene damage. Darius is another mainstay in the top lane gauntlet, and if you haven't noticed the trend, champs with healing already always do well with this rune. But given it heals on all parts of his kit, ult included, once you have it stacked you basically win any 1v1. And with Darius wanting to maintain his Noxian Might passive stacks for that AD boost, doing this at the same time as keeping the 10 Conqueror stacks active can make you an unstoppable berserker. That's a hint for the jungle section. The ultimate duelist Fiora may be considered by some to be a high-risk, high-reward champion, but given the true damage from her duelist stance passive, the increased AD and healing from the changes of the rune have only aided her power curve and made her sustained fights trend towards the comical. You can stack it the same way as in Season 9, getting to 4-6 stacks by using Q and then going all in. You get the full procs along with your abilities, and that tastes better than a fresh Parisian pain au chocolat. Clyde is one of those excellent solo queue top laners, always really great in that sense, and he can actually make the top lane impact memes die given, well, the impact of his ultimate. And the mixture of his abilities and autos makes stacking this rune very easy for him, and the healing only helps Clyde and Scar sustain in lane and fights that much easier. Combine Conqueror with his highest base HP in the game, and it makes you a tiny monster early and a still tiny but bigger monster in the late game. The gas emitted from Singed now comes with a more sulfuric aftersmell, and that's Conqueror stacking, which hasn't changed since the Season 10 update, but doing a Q, auto fling, plus stack from the poison means you just need to throw in one auto and you're basically at 10, and as enemies stay within the cloud taking damage every 5 seconds, gaining that healing plus raw adaptive AP while kiting or running away means you don't need to be near the target, and it really lets him enjoy the benefits of the rune. Now Aurelia, while her win rate is quite abysmal, can still dominate and hard carry a game with a skilled player at the helm. And Conqueror is how they do it, given the combination of autos and abilities means it's very quickly activated with her and just matches up with her kit so well. Right, so as a jungle main, our role is going through a bit of a tumultuous phase on the shortage of XP and gold supplies from the Riot government, but these following champions really do enjoy the updated Conqueror. And not to be outdone by Darius, our actual Berserker is dominating the forest like his Vikings one did using this very rune. As he gets lower HP, Olaf's attack speed increases to what feels like infinity, and when you press W on that, his lifesteal seemingly never ends, including giving him increased healing from all sources. The AD is also pretty sweet. Now imagine a 10-stack Viking with 15% healing just autoing you down. Who do you think wins? Lee Sin, the people's jungler, doesn't necessarily always stack Conqueror instantly like others on this list, but you pick it for that early game adaptive damage stacking, given that fights are likely to last longer and that's where his power curve lies. He'll greatly benefit from the AD the longer the fight goes, and the fact that his mobility is unmatched means that once you're caught in a duel with him, he can and will chase you down with all 10 stacks in tow, along with his built-in lifesteal. Now Master Yi has a unique playstyle, always kind of does his own thing, and as he ramps up the stacks, it simply comes out to more AD equals more Q and E damage, and of course very good healing. The true damage removal doesn't matter much given how his kit scales with raw damage, and so really offsets some early game weaknesses, while letting his super fast attack speed stack it very quickly, all while his R keeps him stacked for those free pentakills. He's a really skinny guy for someone so stacked. Now let's talk about champions that are still performing well with the rune, but perhaps it isn't their main choice. And given we didn't have any ADCs in the previous section who currently dominate with it, let's begin there. Aphelios is actually very strong with Conqueror, even if it isn't quite as strong as PTA. It's popular in Korea at the moment, and you can utilize it very easily considering the amount of casting he does with his weapons. It can also give you more survivability in teamfights along having that bonus damage as well. He is quite immobile, so anything that can aid in the area when PL is scarce can be quite enticing. Draven is the classic ADC user for Conqueror, but the power level of the rune didn't translate over the removal of true damage. Though given how strong he scales with raw AD plus turbo healing, it means it's still the league of Draven, just with a little bit less yelling. Now Misfortune seems to be the one other ADC with enough usage rate that her win rate with the rune can be considered relevant in this discussion, and much like Draven is mainly about the raw scaling she has with the stacking adaptive damage on her abilities. So once you have the stacks up from autos, her kit is really going to hit hard, especially in that ultimate. And this is very much why Lucian likes the rune as well, due to his passive shots, and when using a combo into your ultimate you'll have the full AD loaded and ready to dispense freedom upon any trapped souls. Now junglers in this case don't always reap the benefits of a Conqueror type rune, but many can use it for the absolute crucial river fights and ganks that lets them translate better into late game teamfights. And with Kha'Zix still being able to stack it 2 times over with his kit, the removal of true damage brings him down a notch, but it's still a fluid, strong giver of AD damage that's very powerful in all situations, especially versus bruisers and tanks when Electrocute isn't as useful, but yet still has a 64% to 15% usage rate over Conqueror. Not to mention the 15% healing along with his W can be quite obnoxious. Now Rengar is one of those jungles that greatly enjoys the bounty of this rune, given that Warwick, Olaf and Lee Sin are popular from the jungle and bruisers currently dominate top lane. This means more extended fights and stacking more AD and healing grants Rengar additional power and versatility, and the rune is even better from the top lane specifically with a bruiser build, while Electrocute is still the best default for junglers. Either way, depending on the team comp, you have 2 insanely good choices for this particular knife cat. Nocturne is known for having a lethal tempo kit and is still by far his most common rune. That being said, the win rate on Conqueror has climbed steadily, is a bit higher, and suits a more AD bruiser build path. This is really useful if you don't want to be a flying clay pigeon. Rek'Sai still hails the blade since her nerfs and the Conqueror shifts, but into long skirmish comps or games that might rely more on team fighting, the AD and specifically healing in these situations will be more useful to her. You can see this from the not insignificant 26% usage rate, whereas Hail of Blades is definitely a more early game orientated rune. While Nidalee is back in the high elo jungle meta given the focus on counter jungling and early pressure, Conqueror can be a strong choice over Electrocute or Dark Harvest when facing tankier team compositions, given you stack the rune in range form and can get the full 15% melee heal when you switch to Kuga, which is pretty good considering that's when you'll be taking more damage. Shyvana may be slightly forgotten, I almost forgot her on this list, and people are still defaulting to her Dark Harvest AP build. Her win rate though is actually very solid using Conqueror due to the ease of stacking. Remember, she has an auto reset on her Q, and of course teamfight potential, which is where she can really struggle when she's not ahead, especially when you are reliant on that AP and harvest stacking build and you find yourself behind. It just doesn't translate as well, and it kind of shores up some of her weaknesses in the early game. Now finally, let's look at champions that still take Conqueror as a main rune, where it's their best choice, but it's not quite borderline OP, it's just kind of balanced in a good way. in some cases probably fringe OP, but let's begin with mid laners, and we have the eternal snowballing Katarina. Using this with her Hextech Gunblade build, maybe even Death's Dance if you like that way, the fact that it's melee, you can throw your daggers out once you get the rune rolling. When you get those resets with your ultimate in gangs, skirmishes, and crucial objective fights, basically it's permanently up, and that's really useful in tight close games where she might even fall off. Akali is a high skill champ with disturbing mobility, and because of her Q spam can very easily stack and proc the rune, and going with the Hextech Gunblade build like Katarina's can become unkillable when she's ahead. Basically, there's a reason she has a 53% ban rate in Masters Plus despite her weaker win rate. For top laners, we have an interesting final stash, and that includes some very powerful names, and to be honest, we could have easily included Urgot and Yorick in the first S category given they have both over 51% win rates with the rune, and an 85% usage rate for Urgot and 75% for Yorick. Both top laners have the ability to either stick to targets or keep the rune ticking and fully stacked in the form of multiple legs or ghouls that just won't quit. Now it might seem weird with Riven being down here given she has a 97% usage rate, but thanks to her nerfs and power shifts over the past year as well as true damage removal, her permaban Conqueror status isn't as OP as it once was. But make no mistake, the ease with which she uses this amongst her autos and abilities is not to be underestimated considering how much she loves AD when she has even a small lead. Jax and Illaoi are mainstays in the top lane who have definitely felt the burn of the power shift in Season 10, but nonetheless rely heavily on this as their main keystone to remain atop the tier lists for top lane, at least for Jax, who has immense stickiness, allowing him to really benefit the longer a fight goes on, whereas Illaoi has moved into this category after the removal of Klepto. The healing on her kit and the love of 2v1ing junglers and top laners has resulted in an even larger power spike in the Death's Dance builds. Aatrox is similar to Akali in that she's usually considered a higher skill cap, and even though he isn't in the best place in the meta and his win rate department is kind of weak, his Conqueror synergy reigns supreme and works with Riot's goal of trying to bring back some of that drain tank philosophy that has re-emerged after all the changes and shifts to the rework since it was first released. Now all I can hear is the long-live Boris memes in the comments. Camille is seeing victories with both Press the Attack and Conqueror, but does have a good 50% win rate and 68% usage rate using the latter. And while she might not use it in the jungle, in the top lane when given a lead, it can really be used to snowball with the increased top laner XP in Season 10. Make sure you're roaming, use that impact. The Baker Dude might know a thing or two about bread, but also now how to make an entrance with his permaban status on the world stage. Obviously, given balance changes and meta shifts, he still relies on this rune to a tune of 85%, and while his win rate is currently less impressive, don't underestimate the power of his near global ultimate to impact the map and sustain through crucial fights. And finally, we have the Croc, who doesn't rely on this rune, but the fact that he can very easily bait people in with the surprise damage and sustain is only accentuated with the Season 10 Conqueror. And to close, just a few notes on some more lesser focused junglers. Hecarim was one of the meta defining ones in Season 9, and all because of the healing possibilities from his W and this rune. While he doesn't benefit as much from the raw adaptive damage, the 15% sustain addition really still makes it his best win rate at a whopping 81% usage rate despite the infatuation some have with Predator. Kayn isn't in the best spot for the current jungle iteration given his early game weakness, but the fighter-like style with which he can skirmish combined with the inevitability that is Rust means that should you reach that demonic fantasy, you have yourself a rune that can easily give you 1v9 potential. Use it wisely. And early fights and ganking is back, and while Udyr can sometimes struggle to be a champion, with his 50% win rate on a 44% usage rate, he can definitely still pack a punch, it just isn't as scary as it once was. The sticking potential with his E as well as his Tiger and ability rotations means that a chase down of 10 stacks is probably coming your way. Okay, that should do it. A whole bunch of champions that really use this rune very well. I know there's a lot in top lane, but that's kind of the meta. Champs like Ryze have shifted back to phase rush since the nerf on the healing and the range damage, but there's definitely an abundance of champions that you can pick that will best make use of this rune in Season 10. Thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to like, share, and comment if you enjoyed this video from Mobalytics. Remember to subscribe and click the bell for all the videos coming up that will help you climb faster in Season 10. I have been Virakayu, and I will see you all in the next video.